manager of Santa Paula. It's June 18th. I'll have to check my calendar, but it's June 18th, and I'm Peggy Kelly, and we've got a lot to talk about today about what's going on in Santa Paula. Good morning, Dan. It's always nice seeing you.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Right now, let's just jump in. What's going on with the update with COVID-19 and the reopening of businesses?
Sure. Well, on the negative side, we are continuing to see spreads throughout the county and the state and the country for that matter. Some of that is attributable to the vastly larger numbers of tests, but the positive tests are actually a smaller fraction of those getting tested. So clearly the virus continues to spread. We have over 150 cases here, although, I think we're trending really well for recovery. There's only about 20% of those cases of people that are currently sick.
Okay,
which
you mean countywide or,
Yeah, on a countywide basis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, less than 20%.
And I think what happens too, though, is sometimes people don't realize with Santa Paula, as of yesterday, we had 152 cases. Once again, as a reminder, that's since March 6th when they first detected it. So we don't have that many, or the county doesn't have that many all at once.
Yeah, that's right. It's still a very small percentage, but I think it speaks to the fact that we're not out of the woods. Being cautious, utilizing the recommendations by the state, the CDC, our own Dr. Levin in the county is really important, and that includes some new guidelines actually by the state, which we can talk about in a minute. But one positive is the reopening effort, and we're just thrilled to see more and more of our businesses getting back to normal, or at least close. You can walk Main Street or drive up and down Harvard Boulevard and see more and more businesses that are opening their doors and able to serve our community, which is just really comforting to see. Not to mention a great opportunity to get out and have a bite to eat or do some shopping.
Yes, and they're going to get more encouragement from the county of Ventura, because the county actually has a business program and also a rental program we'll talk about in a moment too. But right now, let's stick with the business. They do have a grant program that can you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, very exciting. It's and very generous. The county is making available $5,000 per business. It's a forgivable loan. It's a grant, as you said. It doesn't have to be paid back. There's really no strings attached. You have to be a business that has an existing business license that has been in business as of the start of COVID, as of I think March 17th. So you can't just say, oh yeah, April 1st I started a new business, now pay me. However, this money would go to really mostly small businesses, those that had gross revenues of at least $25,000 last year. So it's not really for hobbyists like just, a piano teacher.
Sure.
It's for legitimate businesses, and less than $2 million a year. And one thing that's really favorable for Santa Paula is that some of the money is dedicated to women and minority-owned businesses first, and then also disadvantaged communities second.
Oh, that's
and so we have quite a
disadvantaged community.
Yeah, so we have a lot of people that will qualify in those two categories. After they've cycled through those two categories, then they'll open it up to all businesses countywide. So a business locally that might be minority owned, maybe doesn't get money the first time, should still apply for the disadvantaged community round. And even if they don't get money then because of the demand, they can still put in for the third round, which would be, for the entire county.
Sure.
So I think we should do quite well. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And, so the applications they'll open up next Wednesday. Our Chamber of Commerce has been really proactive and has hired a couple of caseworkers to help businesses. So we're getting the word out there, not only to inform them, but even to offer to help fill out these forms, because it has to be done online. And both of these caseworkers are Spanish speaking and English speaking. So it's really terrific, and really excited to help support businesses that are really struggling or have barely made it through this. $5,000 can go a long way to paying rent,
absolutely,
helping them catch up on their bills.
Mhm. Absolutely. And of course, this is kind of a time to kind of steady yourself, and you need the money,
Yeah.
and I mean, basically everybody needs the money. There's no doubt whatsoever that, we've got a lot of businesses that still need a lot of support, and if they can get a grant, that's even better,
And
Now,
based on what the
mhm,
county is putting aside for this program, we should see businesses collectively take in at least $200,000 to $300,000 in these coming weeks. So
mhm,
that's a real boost to our local economy to have.
yes, that is, and that's what you're projecting for just the Santa Paula area.
Yeah, minimum.
Oh, okay, that's wonderful. Well, I'm
Yeah,
I'm very glad to hear that.
yeah,
Now, we also have the rent program, so let's just touch upon that. And the county's also spearheaded that and is also providing the funding, which is part of funding they've received from the state, I believe.
that's right.
Can you explain that briefly?
Yeah, so it's a rental assistance to lower income families. It's again, a fairly easy program to qualify for. The checks go to the landlords. So,
Mhm.
this has to be in cooperation with the landlord. That program opened up yesterday, June 17th. The best resource to get information is in the Mighty Santa Paula Times,
Mighty Santa
because
Paula.
there's a
Yeah.
nice big ad in there that the
Mhm.
county, I think, has taken out, or on the county's website, which is VC, as in Ventura County reopens. So vcreopens.com, and you can get information there, again, in Spanish and English. So I think it's a great way to get families the help that they might need.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
really, absolutely. I mean, we do have the ordinance where people can't be evicted sometimes and things like that. Is that still in effect here in Santa Paula?
That is through June 30th, so
Okay, through
it
June 30th. Yes,
will expire. I
absolutely.
don't
And
anticipate.
landlords have to be paid too. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah,
landlords and they're very patient and they're trying to help their tenants and I mean, so this helps ease everybody's burden a little bit. And I think that's just wonderful. Do you know what
yeah,
the
I couldn't
what the
agree more.
cap
And I heard
on
this
that is?
morning, well, let me just say, I heard this morning that there had only been about 50 applicants so far in the first day. So don't waste too much time if you're out there and listening, or you have a neighbor or a family member who could use this help. Get that application in.
Oh, and are you talking 50 applications in Santa
Count-
Paula or just
Countywide.
countywide? Countywide.
Yeah, and
County.
there's, I think, $5 million that's been set aside.
Yes,
So,
yes, that's
uh,
amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
well, and what's the cap on that as far as the money cap? Do you know offhand?
I think it's $1,500.
Okay, that sounds right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, that makes a big difference. That'll keep a family in place for a month, So
yeah,
hopefully everybody takes advantage of that and it's there to help people and hopefully they will, become more aware of it. It just usually takes one person in need to avail themselves of this and then they spread the word. So hopefully
yeah,
that's going to happen and we'll do that. Now let's get back to COVID, unfortunately, but now
yeah.
the state is the state now pondering or weighing having a mask ordinance because as you mentioned earlier, we are having spikes. Our numbers are increasing.
Yes.
There's good news, bad news. So
So they, as of 10 o'clock this morning, they have
mhm,
issued a new guideline. It updates their previous guidance on mask wearing. It's
mhm.
much more extensive, and it takes effect June 18th or 19th. It's either
Tomorrow, either
tonight or
today or
I think it's
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And what does
So
that entail?
it it essentially requires people to wear masks when they're going indoors, unless they're able to practice social distancing. So
Mhm,
anytime they're in line, whether that's in a bank, a grocery
mhm,
store,
mhm,
um, any public facility, they
mhm,
are required to wear a mask. Transit, if they're on transit, they have to wear a mask. If they're going into any medical facilities, doctor's offices, clinics, hospitals, even just pharmacies,
mhm,
they have to have a mask on.
mhm,
Um, and there's other categories as well. Um, It doesn't require you in your own home. If you're in a work environment that's indoors, you don't have to have a mask on, provided you're able to be distanced from others. But when you are in public spaces, or you're going to the restroom or going to a break room,
Sure.
they're asking that you wear a face covering.
And this is statewide.
This is statewide.
Okay, because Ventura County, we didn't have any sort of a mask guidance. So this,
That's right.
This basically supersedes what the county might say, basically.
Yeah, that's right. It does. It's very unclear what kind of enforcement goes along with it. I can tell you we're not planning to go out writing tickets for people. We may, however, cite businesses that aren't cooperating.
Right.
So, you know, if we go inside a hair salon and they're not requiring people to have masks on, we'll hold that business accountable. Right. We're not going to go turn around and cite the individual who walks in without the mask.
Of course. And of course, businesses had the right to begin with to say they wanted people to wear masks, and that was their policy. And there's plenty of businesses out there that still say that. So
many of them,
many of them have already gone down that path. Well, I think that's going to be interesting how it affects the curve, and I can only wait to see how the numbers go with that and how people cooperate. I think we're pretty lucky in Ventura County as a whole, because I think by our numbers, which still are low compared to the rest of the state, that we have been careful. I mean, Ventura County has been proactive and been careful, but we've got to be even more so. It's not over yet, unfortunately. Now, street work, hooray. Everybody's glad to see that we've got some streets now that have been repaved and smooth sailing, as it were, when before it was just, you know, body surfing. So
we have initiated our 5-year pavement management plan. Work got underway earlier in May, and it continues actually through August. So, you know, we apologize for any disruption, although people have been very cooperative in moving cars and you know, avoiding the work, which we appreciate. But we're really excited to get that program started. It won't fix all of our streets this year, but the plan is available to people to check it out on our website. We have some informational videos that help people understand why in the world would the city spend money on streets that already look pretty good and not fix the ones that look so bad. Right. And I think the best analogy for that is, you know, you wouldn't buy a car and not change the oil and do maintenance on it. Right? Because if you did, you wouldn't be able to get 10 or more years of life out of that car. And roads are much the same way. They have to be maintained. So if we put money into the really bad streets, we won't have money for maintenance. And if we don't maintain the good streets and extend their life, then they're all going to get bad. And the cost of fixing a bad street is parallel to you not doing oil changes, and then after a year your whole engine has failed, and then you have to replace the engine, you know, or replace the car. And it's incredibly expensive, instead of just spending that $30 every, you know, 4 to 6 months, or whatever.
And that's at spcity.org. They can watch that.
Yep.
Follow the links. Well, I think that's great. And there's been a lot of positive comment on that, I might add too. So I've gotten some comments that are very positive. It gives people, excuse me, I have a stray hair. It's the hair of the dog, I might add. But anyway, and they're very positive about it because they have waited so long, you know, and they're very positive. Now let's talk about, I know last night at the council meeting you had a report on from Interim Police Chief Ishkadero about use of force. Yes. And how did that go? I did watch the meeting, but I'd like you to explain it.
Yeah, I think, you know, the nation has raised its voice in drawing attention not just to discrimination and the practices of law enforcement, but just to the whole concept of what the police's role in society is. And so we thought it was really important to have a dialogue about what it is that we do, how our officers are trained, the checks and balances that we have within our department to make sure there are not abuses, the documentation that goes into the very few times that we ever use force. And I should point out, Ms. Kelly, that out of about every 2,000 calls that we respond on, there's one time that an officer is using force.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not a common occurrence. And by use of force, we mean, just basically putting their hands on someone. It doesn't mean that they've,
right. Mm-hmm.
gotten out their gun.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those might be an occasional taser or needing somebody who's not cooperating
Mm-hmm.
to force them to get handcuffs on and get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, we have a very cooperative community. So we wanted to explain that to the council and the public. Mm-hmm. And I think, and we're doing some reforms. We're eliminating what's commonly referred to as the chokehold
Mm-hmm.
as a technique.
Mm-hmm.
And our policies already require officers that are observing the use of force or observing behaviors of one of their colleagues, if it's not in keeping with our rules and practices, that they have an obligation to report that. Apparently, that was one of the things that was missing in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. Is officers weren't held accountable for saying something.
Right. Well,
so,
they were probably even punished for saying something,
Right.
So that,
right.
And that is their obligation to report a crime, no matter who's committing the crime. But go ahead. And yeah, no, it was very wide reaching. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're also putting together a task force to just do a review of all of our policies. Mm-hmm. We generally do that once a year anyway, but it seems timely to take a fresh look. We'll report back to the city council in the coming months on that. We also anticipate probably hosting some type of community forum on this and any topic. Maybe get the chief of police and the mayor up there and
sure, that would be great. That would really give the public a chance to come and be involved. And also, I know you had said something too about a public workshops about selecting a new chief of police, about what the public would like to see, which is how they have done hiring in the past, not this last time, but the time before. They had workshops and input, and it was a real interesting process and a very successful process.
Mm-hmm. We are out on the street with our advertisement for a new permanent chief of police, and that'll still take a number of months, but we do want public input and anticipate the public, some selected members of the community being involved in the selection process.
Right, mm-hmm. But you are going to looking at workshops that perhaps to get just input about what people what attributes they would like or things like that. Is that on it or?
We don't have anything formal like a survey planned right now, but I'm always interested in hearing from the community, and we may still do something like that. Initial applications aren't even due till August, and right now we're so focused on the budget.
Yes, it's just not a good time really to get into anything else, but we have to do it all. And I understand that. That's great. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're going to have that task force, because that's something that kind of fell by the wayside too. But anyway, anything you'd like to add? I know that there's probably, we've covered a lot of ground, but there's always that little uncovered inch or two. Anything you'd like to add? Well,
our budget is in the process of hopefully getting adopted next week by the council. Because of the economic slowdown, we've had to cut about 12% of our revenues. And that's going to mean, in some ways, a little less services, certainly constraints on staff and our budgets. But there's no real compromise of the basic services that the community gets to enjoy. So.
Okay, well, we'll talk more about that, and I know you guys are going to be revisiting that, but I certainly appreciate you sitting down and talking to us. I know you're very busy, and
always.
We'll make sure this gets out and the public can hear from you directly on some of these things, and that better readies them too for one-on-ones with the council or yourself. Just one quick question. Any idea when they might open up the council chambers for meetings for the public? And I know it would have to be under the guidelines and et cetera, but as far as people actually, because I know the Board of Supervisors opened up this week and
They
that
did.
worked out quite well.
They did. I had a discussion with the city managers from across the county on what their plans and expectations were, and pretty much everyone's thinking after Labor Day. In part, there tends to be a slowdown in the summer. For example, our council only has one meeting in July and one meeting in August. We're not bringing anything too controversial to them during that period of time. So for sure, I expect something after, at the start of September, after Labor Day, possibly even as early as August with like limited attendance.
Well, that's good to hear. It's been very stressful on everybody, City Hall and the public. And so hopefully we can start getting back to seeing each other on a, that I don't think and part of this podcast is not to lose that connection with the public. And I know you recognize that, and we appreciate everything you've done for it. So you have a very, very nice weekend, Dan.
Thank you. You too, Peggy. Thanks for all the support.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. KADYTV.net. Don't forget to subscribe. And that way we can bring you even more broadcasting. Once again, I'm Peggy Kelly and had Dan Singer, City Manager of Santa Paula, for Good Morning Santa Paula, June 18th. And you have a very nice time. Bye-bye.